I will give you a little bit of background about myself before we start, and not try to bore you too much. I was educated in the United States and in Europe. Part of it was done at the University of California in Los Angeles, and then part of it was done at the University of Bordeaux and the University of Paris, and then the University of Pennsylvania. And finally, when I issued out of the education system, I did a few years in the American diplomatic service. And I soon found out that that diplomatic service was not for me. So after only about 5 or 6 years, I resigned, and I started and began doing my own businesses, various businesses I did. And while I was doing or running a business in Asia, I had moved to Asia. My mother died while I was doing that. The business was going quite well. And of course, I was quite shaken by that. So the very evening after she had passed away, I was sitting in a very crowded square in Hong Kong. Just thousands of people screaming back and forth. And I was waiting for a dinner engagement. And all of a sudden, I heard her voice. It was like right next to me, clear as a bell, telling me to assure my father that she was fine, and that everything was, and that she was well. And I said to myself, my goodness, what's going on here? Could it be hallucinations due to the grief of losing her? And I went through the evening, went through the dinner, and then on my way home, I heard her again. She was talking to me. And I said, now, what is going on? And I said, in the middle of the night, again, I heard her. And I said, okay, tell me it's real. Give me some sign that this is really you talking and not myself talking to myself. And then all the dogs started barking outside. I said, okay, that's enough proof for the moment. And then over the years, a couple of years that passed, I noticed in my apartment that I would, sort of rub against something, a palpable presence in my house. And there were some other clairvoyant people who had visited me. They said, there's somebody else here. And I said, I think it's my mother. And they said, yes, she's shaking her head. And so this got me going from a concrete-brained businessman to thinking, my goodness, what is going on? Something else, another dimension is presenting itself. So what I did was to buy every book I could find in the Hong Kong bookstores dealing with the near-death experiences and other mediumistic things. And I read and read and read and read until, I had some idea, but I didn't have really any contact with it. Then, after a while, I got this impulse from my mother to close up everything. She says, they want you to close up everything and go back to Hawaii, where I'm from. And things were going quite well, and I was making enough money in this trading business. But I dutifully closed it down, packed up the containers, and sent it back to Hawaii. I didn't know really what I was doing. And I arrived there, and I was quite rattled because I didn't know why I had come back to Hawaii. And Hawaii, I had decided years before that I would never go back there because it was, for me, having grown up there, it was a pretty boring place to live. It was beautiful but boring. And so finally, it became clear that I was in a state of mind where I was searching for more beyond the material dimension that we exist on, and then I saw this little ad in the newspaper of a psychic that was advertising readings. So I said, well, I'll give it a try. So I went to her, and she said, you know, something's just happened that I've never experienced before. The Master Moria and the Master Saint Germain have shown up, and I've never had them show up before. And I said, who were they? And over the course of several weeks, I did some research and found out who they were. And then she suggested that I see her guru, who was a medium. It's one of these mediums that could go into 100% trance, and whoever the incoming spirit would take over. And I said, first, well, let me see how he is. And I went to a session that he was holding one Friday evening, and he was sort of saying, oh, this spirit says that you have to do this, and he was pointing out different people, and I was watching this whole thing go on. And all of a sudden he said, my principal guide would like to take me over right now, so I will let him do it. I'm a trance medium, etc., etc. Who is that principal guide? None other than Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. And from a nice American accent, I saw this spirit take him over, and before you know it, you have the voice of Sir Arthur coming through. And he gave us a little bit of a picture of what would happen, some of the earth changes that were in store for the earth. And then he faded out, and the medium came back. And I said, this was one of the most incredible experiences I had up to that point. This guy must be a very well-trained actor who can switch, accents and talk. But then the more I thought of it, the more I thought of how spontaneous that whole exchange was between the audience and this entity that had come through the medium. So I said, well, the only way I'm going to find out is to experience it myself. So I signed up for a meeting or reading with the medium. And there I was. After a couple of weeks, I was sitting before the medium, and we were sort of bantering about. He was trying to get a hold, trying to figure out who I was from the astrological charts, etc. And then I said, who is Saint Germain? And he said, wait, wants to come through again. So I sat there and watched him being taken over by Sir Arthur's spirit. And that was the turning point of my life. That's when I left business behind and moved into this whole realm of being sort of a spokesman for the spiritual hierarchy. That is when it was told to me that from then on, I would serve as Saint Germain, the Master Saint Germain's spokesman, or amanuensis is what he called it. Now, I said, who is Saint Germain? Saint Germain, of course, it was told to me, was the old count that had gone over, had run over 2 centuries of time, had visited the monarchs of Europe, and his project was, of course, to put them together and show them their dastardly ways and how the people under their rule were suffering under their sort of monarchical oppression. And then he had to give up because of their resilience to any type of spiritual help. And then he turned his view toward the Americas and set up that whole system of what is called the U.S. Constitution, etc., and America. That was one of his inventions. So here he was, and I said, I don't know anything about this. And what ensued was a period of 10 years of training that I was put through. And this training was run by various entities, if you want to call them, or spiritual people who, one took over the mediumship, one took over the writing, one took over the clairaudience and the clairvoyance, and through a series of these trainings that I went through, I was able to produce 3 books about the future. And those 3 books have been circulated all around the world, and at least there is some kind of idea among the peoples on Earth that there are some great changes coming, or that have already come. Now, I started with what they wanted me to produce was a book to show all the events that would lead up to the year 2012. And that book, of course, was to sort of placate a lot of people who thought that 2012 would be the end of the world. It isn't. And this is the year 2012. And this is why I'm here, to gather together as many light bearers possible that could come in and listen to this so that they would know what to do after. Now, what happened was that this book came out showing, and they came out and said to me, we will lay it on the table now. No more sweet talk, no more nice little spiritual things to say. Your world is in deep trouble, and it is now run by a whole set of dark forces that have taken over the earth since 2,000-3,000 years. And today they emerge as bankers, and they emerge as warmongers, they emerge as governments even. So I said, no, wait a minute. You want me to write this stuff, and how do I know it's true? And they said, well, we can't argue with you about the future. But what we can do, you just write it down. If you have enough faith in what we're telling you, you write it down, publish it, and see what happens. So I took a bit of a risk, jumped into it, and wrote it. And I could feel that they were involved in the writing of this book. Now, one of the main things they wanted to convey over to the general public was that things from the year maybe 1998, 1999 would start ramping up. Acceleration is what they said. Acceleration, and I don't know whether you felt this. You felt over the last decade that there has been an acceleration of time, I'm sure. You close your eyes and it's the next year. And you start the day and it just flashed by. This is unprecedented. Now, what's happening there is that after World War II, there was a great takeover of the world. There was no victory in World War II. There was a takeover of the world by the dark forces. On one side was extreme consumerism. On the other side was oppression, dictatorship, communism, etc., etc., etc. So there was sort of, I'd say maybe a 50-year hiatus in the evolution of mankind. So the acceleration that was proposed in the year 2000 was a step on the accelerator and move humanity back up to snuff, and speed up things a bit. Now, you've seen already the effects of this acceleration. I don't know whether you've experienced in your families upheavals of all kinds. Daughters talking back to their mothers, and sons are talking back to their fathers, and things are just kind of in a turmoil in the families. And in your relationships also, in marriages, you're seeing a sort of, this is all part of this upheaval. And the upheaval, of course, is hitting the whole world. And it's hitting the banking system, because the banking system does not serve humanity. It hits everything that does not serve mankind. And all the emotions and things that enter into your life that don't forward your spiritual evolution gets wiped out. In other words, it's a big broom sweeping out all this stuff to get rid of all the things that don't belong on the earth and among humanity, making way for a new cycle. So, what we're in now, we are now in the throes of the end of a 25,000 year sidereal cycle. And that's why you look out and you've experienced every time you open the paper, things are just roiling. And they're, all this craziness is going on. And this involves a lot of physical changes as well to the earth. And you're seeing it right now. You're seeing tsunamis, and you're seeing floods, and you're seeing all this stuff. And you're seeing a lot of warmongering going on. Extra amount of warmongering. And this is all part of the turmoil that comes at the end of a major cycle like this, making room for the new cycle, which is the age of Aquarius. And it's more or less around the year 2000 that the Piscean age sort of kind of came to an end, and the throes of cleansing started around 2000, which is the first volume of the book about all the stuff that was going to happen to clean up things. And of course the resistant forces, the dark forces, are fighting like mad to stay in power and to remain there and to keep their banks going, even if it's just a shell today. It's just a shell of insolvent banks. So that's one of the major things that's happening now. So you see this turmoil going and going. Now, what's happening this year is going to be a critical turning point. And just looking at you, I can see that you are, most of you here, in fact all of you here, are what we call light bearers. Otherwise you wouldn't be sitting here listening to me blab about this stuff. That's not the kind of things normal people like to listen to. What I'm saying is, so I'm pretty sure that you guys are all quite what we would call light bearers. So you will be, what I'm going to tell you that's happening this year is something you will all feel, because I can see already that you are what they call that sensitive kind of human being that can feel things and that can see things, and you know what is right and wrong, which is a lot more than I can say about our leaders. So what's going to happen is that this acceleration that we've been experiencing over the last decade, that has been roiling up and turning our world inside out, is going to continue. But what's going to happen is going to be a significant ramp up around December 21st, where everybody expects spaceships to come in and save people, where the Earth is going to come to an end. The Earth will not come to an end. What's going to happen is that there's going to be a complete shift in vibrations. And it'll ramp up like this. And then you'll have several things that will happen to you, or that you will be able to see, most likely. One of the things that is going to be felt when you it's going to start around, in December, November, December, and it will gradually get more and more obvious, is a certain lightness, a brightness of things. It's like, when you get up in the morning, the sun suddenly shoots out and there's a dawning of something, and you'll look out the window and things will just seem lighter and brighter. That's pretty good, isn't it? With all the doom and gloom we've been seeing all these months, suddenly you're going to see through things. And suddenly, what goes with this lighter and brighter atmosphere will be a sense of fearlessness. Suddenly, you're not going to be scared of things. Our lives are just completely dominated by fear. Fear that my kid is going to get sick and not going to make it here, and there's going to be an accident there, and we're going to stand in line. Everything, you're sort of having these little petty fears, and most of them don't really come out the way you think they're going to come out. But just imagine when you don't hear and see those fears, and why? Because you're ramping up, the vibrations are ramping up like this. And I say especially for people like you who are able to adjust to the vibrations, and the fears that are floating around on the astral plane and on your astral body are of a low vibrational level. So when they try to hit you, they're just not going to touch you, and you're not going to be part of their you're not going to be their victims, because, as I say, the dark forces of today use fear in every way, in the news and the media and everything, to shake you up every day and to ruin your day. So all that stuff is just going to kind of bypass you. And then what comes with fearlessness is the idea that, my God, I can do a lot more things than I thought I could do. And that is what we call the new dawning. The new dawning with this year, at the end of this year, beginning of 2013, you will take the little baby steps into the next dimension, which is the fourth dimension. And it's going to take a few thousand years after that to materialize. But what you're just doing is taking the first baby step into it, because you have the ability to rise with the vibration that is going to be hitting, that the earth will be going through. Now, some of the things that will happen, or you can do, is this is a new dawning, sort of like a rebirth of what you have always wanted to do. I'm sure many of you have suppressed your desires about what your life should be, what you should have done, what never was realized. Something that, I wish I could do this, it's too good to be true, these kind of things. If I were you right now, I would make a list of these things that you would like finally to come through and bless your life. Things that you've always dreamed of doing. Do it. Make a list, because the energies that are going to come up at the beginning of the year will enable you, with a sense of fearlessness, of course, to go about doing it. In fact, it sounds crazy, but in the middle of this worldwide recession, they call it recession, I call it depression, it might be a good time to start a business. If that has been something that's been in the back of your mind all the time, or start some activity of some sort. Something that has been part of that soul-driven creativity that you always wanted to do, I would try to do it. And it can get as physical as changing parts of your body too. If you have a bad back, or you have something that doesn't work well, put that on your list too, because that also can be changed. Because I think we have to realize that there's a transmutation going on the earth today that can make things change this way. And this will be such a bump upward after December that you'll be able to really take advantage of this. How many of you have trouble meditating? That's gonna drop away too. You'll be able to penetrate more into the inner world because of these higher vibrations. You'll be able to get into deeper meditation. And of course, if you make any progress spiritually, it's through meditation. So you'll find that this is going to be something that's going to be much easier for you to realize and to practice. And while you're doing that, you'll be gaining insights into the divinity of everybody. You'll be able to see even the most annoying person that you know that just bugs you. You'll be able to look at that person and see that person, see the God within that person with this kind of depth of thinking. It's a switch in your consciousness, okay, so that it enables you to see this. So, everybody has a story to tell, and it'll be, it might be that person that you seek to avoid in the supermarket, but you sit down and listen to it, and you'll see that more and more as you give time and effort toward just listening to what other people have to say, you will see the divinity in everyone. And that begins the new society. When people are able to do that, the new age is born. That is kind of vision you have to have of your other people, your relationships and everything. When you see them as walking gods, their divinity, that God within, becomes exteriorized. And you, of course, can see it now. The window to the soul, of course, is the two eyes, and you can see. Now, if you can see that even in somebody that annoys you. I mean, you've made a big leap forward. Now, the other thing that will happen with these higher vibrations at the beginning, at the end of this year, beginning of next year, is that you're going to probably, or maybe some of you already see them. How many of you can see devas and elementals hopping around? You can. It's great. You'll see leprechauns and you'll see all these things that normally you don't see. And what's going on now? It's the fact that your eyes, your physical eyes, are being ramped up to their next level of ability, which is seeing etherically. And what you're actually doing is seeing the border of the fourth dimension, which is where the whole age of Aquarius and the new age is going to be held. You're going to, by the end of the age of Aquarius, you would be giving up most of your physical bodies and you'll be in etheric bodies. And of course, that's going to take a while for that to happen, and a few thousand rebirths and reincarnations. But that is where we're headed. That is the evolution. That is the upward trend in spiritual evolution. So when you have this type of vision, you'll be seeing the other dimension that is actually here with us, but most of us don't see it. And you'll be able to, harness them, get them to make your plants grow better, cooperate with them, do all kinds of things. Maybe the elves will build you a little house, or I don't know. But it's an interaction that will start happening with this ramping up of the energies. And also your little pooch. How many of you have pets? They'll be going like that to you and telling you things, conveying little messages to you. In fact, they already do probably. Huh? And your dog will say, get with it, or move on. Something's doing this, and the little birds will come and chirp at you, and you'll not only hear the chirping, but you'll hear a kind of a message that'll come. That's the kind of dimensional differences you're going to be able to see. Now, of course, while this is happening, all the stuff that has to go is going to be going on around you. You know, you're going to have all this turmoil. And, you know, there'll be a lot of people around you, close people, people who are close to you or even relatives, who will just want to check out because they're just not comfortable any longer in this dimension. And they're not adjusting to the greater dimensions. And that will bring you to a realization also that what is death? Death is merely a transition of back into your spiritual origins, waiting for another reincarnation. You come in, you know, you're in and out of death. You've done it so many thousand times already that it shouldn't be of any consequence. Although, you know, we're taught that it's very emotional and stuff like that, and of course, losses of loved ones always affect you that way. But hopefully, when you're able to see what actually is death, especially if you believe strongly in eternal life and the continuity of life that goes on, then you can see it in a different perspective, and you'll see that a lot of the cleaning up that goes on is for the sake of Earth and for our existence here, our future existence, and the entry into the new age, of course. You have any questions up to now? So, if these things are happen to you, and you begin to see more clairvoyantly, what do you expect that to give you when you're reading the newspaper, for example? You're going to be able to see right through those words. You're going to be able to see right through the lies. And if you are really fearless, and you'll see that all that stuff that they're trying to make us believe are, you know, just myths and lies, are you going to get up into the street with pitchforks and like the French Revolution and knock over the government? I think some people will do that. And so, consequently, there will be a lot of endings and turmoil around you. But you, as light bearers, have to, that's what you are, you're bearing the light. And your role in this case is as a way shower. What you're doing is, and it's very situational, you'll run into panicked people, maybe in the supermarket, and then you have to take the time to explain to them what's going on. To explain to them that, you know, this isn't what you're going through right now. And this is one of the main tasks of the light bearer in this period of time, in the next couple of years, is to function as that the elder brothers and sisters of this society, to be able to tell these people, and others, you know, people, they don't care about things like this. Their noses are right to the grindstone, and they just don't want to listen to this stuff. They don't want to know about it, and they just go about their lives until they get slammed by some crisis, and then they panic. And you're going to have a lot of people around you that you will meet, and that you will have to comfort and explain things to them, why certain things are happening, and hopefully you'll be able to notch them up a step in the realization, and their consciousness might, you know, expand slightly to be able to adjust to these things. So, how many of you know what a light bearer is? Oh, you're pretty there. These are the beings. You represent advanced souls that have been purposely put on the earth at this time of transition to function in this way. Function as, light bearers, and to inform people around you who are in a total mess, panic of what's really going on. Now, where are we headed? What kind of society are we headed to? I mentioned this before, that within, say, the next 20 years, what you're going to see, if everything goes right, are people who are talking about meditation as if it's, talking about apples and oranges. Everybody's meditating, and everybody is finding the divinity in their fellow man. And so everybody will be, or most people, will be led by their souls. Now what does that mean? Any of you know where your soul is lodged? It's in yourself. We believe that the soul resides in your pineal gland, that it stretches down into yourself, and it's in the middle of your brain. And that soul is connected directly to what we call a monad that is connected to the sun. What would happen if you turned off the sun? We'd all perish. So that is the source of our life, the life that leads from the sun into the monad and into your soul. Did you ever hear that before? No. This is ancient knowledge. This is an ancient mystery. It's been there all the time. It's been covered up by all the religions and stuff. It's very simple. To me, it's simple. If you switch off the sun, you're dead. You turn it back on and you're alive. So that's the source of life that you exhibit here. And that is the light, that soul, that's connected to the sun. That's the light you're bearing. That is what a light bearer is. And as advanced souls, in past lives, you would have learned this and exhibited it in your lives. Now, when the society becomes to the point where most people, the majority of the people, have their heads lit up because they, through meditation, have rediscovered that connection in the middle of your brain with the sun of our solar system, then you have a society that's being truly a spiritual, soul-driven society. And the person is soul-driven. Now, how do you get to that point where you are a soul-driven personality? Meditation. And it's a meditation not with music and not with all this kind of stuff that a lot of meditation that's done today promotes. What it is it's a tough one, and it's worth going into, and especially if we're getting into the higher vibrations, it'll be easier to do than those who have practiced it in, say, the last 10, 20 years. And this is a meditation that we have on our website. And look in the, where's the web? Yeah, sadhgurujamana.net. And you'll see that there is this whole section on meditation, and we recorded also Sir Arthur's instructions on how to do this. And this is all based on Raja Yoga. And how you get into yourselves to the point where you begin to touch that soul that's it's in the middle of your brain. And it takes a while, it takes effort, it takes will. And as I said, it'll get easier toward the end of the year as vibrations start to ramp up. But it is a type of connection. If you have the connection, a visual connection to the point where your contact with that center that's with you lights up your head when you close your eyes, no matter where you are, you're in a dark room and everything, that light in the head is the indication that you have reached in this meditation a connection with the sun. And in that, when you have then, now this is the whole point of the coming new age, and the whole point of this lifting of the vibrations is to allow humanity to get more and more to that point where they can be personalities or bodies, concrete bodies, that are directed by the representative of the sun, which is your soul, in your head, and you'll see a whole change in society. Cosmic laws will make sense. The whole societies will be built on, as I said, these kind of cosmic laws that will straighten the whole earth, hopefully, back on track where it should be, as it has been so off track up to now. So, in the coming months, you're going to be able to touch that particular ability to move more easily into this new range of soul-driven life. Do you have any other? Do you have any questions about what I said? Yes.
Well, it's more of a general question. There's been a lot of sort of astrological information about kind of the transit of Venus in June, and one of the difficulties
Venus is being, Brian, she's asking about the transit of Venus in June. Is that the Venus square? Squaring with see, I'm not an astrologer, so I can't really answer that question. Sorry. But all I know is from what I'm told is that starting in July, you're really going to start seeing this rocking and rolling. That's going to, well, more than what's going on now. And that will extend another 18 months. And that might be a link to this. Yeah. I mean, there are all kinds of forces that are converging right now to get this whole job of cleaning up the earth done.
The moon is particularly, the full moon is particularly close to the Earth. It's the closest to the Earth for the full moon.
The full moon is what?
The full moon is closest to the Earth, and it's been for a long time.
Yeah.
The next moon, which is the Taurus Scorpion.
Are you an astrologer?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
So we are to completely ignore the Mayan prophecies then?
Well, I don't know. I think the Mayan prophecies have been so bastardized. You know, that's not really what's going to happen. And I say it's correct in the fact that it is the end of a cycle. It's not the end of the earth. Yeah. So calendars do. And I think this the end of the earth scenario is people want to make money on it, just making movies and scaring everybody out of their wits. Yes.
So with this cleansing, how do you do?
Well, you know.
I don't feel like watching television. I don't watch television. I don't read the newspaper.
Well, the cleansing you must keep in line with it, and that's why I emphasize this meditation. That if you don't lift your vibrations, you will be cleansed out too. In other words, you start getting sick, and you'll be adjustments. You'll feel bodily discomfort, but you got to, especially from now until the end of the year, where there's going to be a ramp up of these. And if you don't adjust by, at least making an effort in meditation, you're going to find yourself wanting to check out, or,
Twice a day?
Hmm?
Twice a day? Half an hour each day?
Oh, you don't have to do that frequently, but if you want to, you can. I mean, I suggest just something between 15, 20 minutes a day. Maybe once in the morning, once in the evening. But, and also, you know, when you don't have to be in some yogic pose. You may just sitting on a train or stuck in traffic, and you can just get into a state of meditation and align yourself. And that'll keep up, you know, with the vibrations that are going. And especially when you see some shocking news of some sort, instead of getting all riled up emotionally with it, just push it out and line yourself up again. And that is when you're really lined up with the higher vibrations and not with the lower emotional. Anytime you get into all kinds of emotional turmoil, you know you're tramping in the fields of lower vibrations. That's the kind of stuff that's going to be wiped out eventually. Because in the age of Aquarius, it's clarity of thought that's going to get you there. It's nothing to do with emotion. Well, the emotions, you will have a clear idea what that emotion is about and what it's doing to you. That's the kind of clarity of thought. But it's doing the right thing at the right time and in the right place. It's knowing exactly what you're going to do. And how do you know that it's the right thing? It's that connection with your soul. Yes?
The vast majority of people are not into any form of meditation. So does that mean they won't be vibrating?
Well, a lot of them will not adjust. I mean, take for instance a burly truck driver tootling down the highway, and suddenly he sees this little elf walking around on his fender. You know, he's going to be thrown off, and he's going to be in a state of confusion after that, or not even that kind of person, but just maybe your mother or father are going to start seeing things. Now, if you explain to them what it is, the great hope is that when they realize that they themselves can see the next dimension, that there's maybe, cross your fingers, they will go into something like meditation or try to understand what it is, or it depends on how you explain it to them. Yeah. Well,
I think about the majority of society around the world, and we're kind of bred and conditioned almost to be
I know. This is the great job of the light bearers, to be able to explain this stuff in maybe layman's terms so that they come to grips with it. If they just understand maybe that there is another a fourth dimension, that's okay. It is wishful thinking today, but let us say if the whole vibrations of the earth move upward and they're seeing things and they're experiencing things, maybe that's going to push mankind into a greater search into this type of stuff. Or it pushes them out. Exactly. If they don't adjust, then they just say goodbye and come back later.
So we're looking at a period of complete chaos where people are
Well, I didn't want to say that. There is going to be a lot of confusion and a lot of disorientation. And that is what the light bearers were sent out to do, is to keep things, at least, get some order out of this chaos. That's your job. And you're about to come on stage in 6 months. Exactly. Yeah. That's why I said it's a situational thing. Wherever you find yourself, you draw people who need to know what you have to tell them, and comfort them, hopefully, or enlighten them a little bit about it. Yes.
the
The children. Yes, they are what we call, hopefully, some of them are still the last, what we call the sub-root race of the fifth root race. But the new ones are already coming in since the 1960s, and that's the sixth root race. Now these poor children up to now have been suppressed by the system, by the educational system. They know, they see things in the fourth dimension, but they can't talk about it. And so all that stuff's been, suppressed. But yes, they are the ones that are going to take over. Once everybody else says, oh yes, I see that elf there. And that, no, don't talk about it. A lot of mothers say, don't, you're having hallucinations. But when it becomes a reality, when what they see naturally becomes spoken of widely, then they will readjust, hopefully. Some of the sixth root race, and you probably see a lot of them here, have had these experiences since they were little babies, and now they've sort of kept quiet about it for fear of being taken as loonies, but they are in their 40s and 50s now, and I think that this opportunity that's coming up in the next 6 months is a perfect time to start opening that up again, because it's there. It's part of their racial makeup. What we call the sixth root race, it doesn't matter what our races are. They, a black or an Asian, or it could all be sixth root race. So that is definitely happening, and they are flooding the earth right now in the new generation that's being born.
After this is children, and it means after from our children, right?
They will come. There's still thousands of years that they will be coming, but they will be every time, each period. They have subroot races, okay, and so when that's finished, they go to the next subroot race, and they will just get more and more advanced until the incarnations will be, as I said, etheric. Well, you've noticed that if at least married couples, they can communicate telepathically. You can think a person does it, or sometimes you think about a person and suddenly you get an email. That happens a lot, doesn't it? So what is happening is that, again, the messages are being transferred along the etheric plane, which we will get more into, as I say. So I can see that in the next, that you will be experiencing stronger telepathic messages from people you are sympathetic with. In fact, you might be able to write letters of more, it's not these vague ideas, but they will be very precise, and they will get more and more precise as we move into higher vibrations of on the etheric plane. So that's where all this stuff travels. It's like a huge, the etheric plane is just like a huge broadband, if you want to call it, the real broadband. The internet broadband is just a precursor of that. But you're going to see that more and more precise things. Meet me at the train station at 9:08 a.m. Something like that.
They do say the system is deliver the broadband system and all that kind of thing will also crap. Never mind about
Well,
the life of my
it depends where you are. If you're 200 feet or 60 meters above under that, above the sea level now, within that band, it may collapse because we're going to see massive floods along the coastal areas, and that will sort of wipe out a lot of the coastal life. If you're above 200 feet or above 60 meters, then you're fairly safe. Now, there are going to be big urban areas like Boulder and Denver, Colorado, up in the mountains, and where we live up in the Rockies, that are going to be not touched. And remember, a lot of this broadband stuff is connected to the satellite, so that's not touched by what's going on Earth. So I think that that's going to continue in areas that rest intact. But of course, if you're being washed away by some tsunami, of course you won't be around. But but I think even with that, we're going to be a lot more dependent, not dependent, we're going to be able to use mental telepathy more accurately. And therefore, nobody can lie to you anymore. Nobody can hide the truth from you. You'll be able to see through it. Yes.
I don't know. Do you believe that a lot of light workers over the last, I would say, 4 or 5 years especially, been under special negative attacks, trying to distract them or...
Definitely.
Okay, would you, listening to what you said today, being very positive about the future, does your channel say that these attacks are going to diminish now and more people will be putting back on track with light work? Because we've lost...
Well, I'm trying to keep this positive, but I'll...
Okay, yeah, but let's be real.
No, let's be real. If you want the real stuff, I'll give it to you.
Lost a lot.
Well, you know we're talking about this new 6 root race that's coming in. And a lot of these advanced souls are coming in in these vehicles, okay? Now, the dark forces, and I'm talking about not only bankers and everything, but there's a crust of them that are Atlantean souls that have mastered astrology, they've mastered black magic. And through black magic and other ways, they know who's coming in as a light bearer. So these light bearers are targeted from the very start. They get confused in school. I think one of the worst things is getting lined up with wrong relationships that lead them off track. And a miserable marriage. Talk about miserable marriages. The poor light workers are just really suffering under this one, because there's the attraction and there's the sexual compatibility, etc., and that is probably the easiest way that light bearers get completely off track. Now, I don't know whether it's been the last 5 years, but it's been the last 40 years, I would say, that these attacks have been going. And those who climb out afterwards, and I think the attacks the attacks last maybe up to the point where they're about 30, 35 years old, and they begin to wake up as adults and say, hey, wait a minute, what's happening to me? I'm off track. I'm going to a job every day that I hate, and I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be shuffling papers here. I should be doing something else. Now, what is that something else is the big thing. And that something else sometimes is strong enough to make them decide to take drastic measures in their lives and switch and get into meditation and get hooked back into what their soul plan is. And those are the few that are saved. Now let's say when they ask for volunteers for going in to the earth, and this was done 400 years ago, the spiritual hierarchy has been planning this new strategy of flooding the earth with light workers. Instead of pushing the button and sinking the continent, they said, well, let's try another strategy. Let's get all the advanced souls who want to go into earth and sacrifice their own spiritual development by going back into the concrete body, getting more karma, and even risking having to reincarnate after that because of the bad karma they may have created. So here they are, here you are, back with us. And searching, because when you're born, you're just born blind. You don't know where, what it is, except you have this throbbing soul in you that's trying to break through this concrete body. Now, what happens is that if you don't get led into some kind of mind control and meditation, but you feel inside of you this great need that you're in, like you're in the wrong place all the time. Now, 1 out of 3 of the volunteers was chosen to come into incarnation. And I estimate that a successful light bearer that actually breaks out of this mode and opens up and knows he's a light bearer is 1 out of 10 of those 1 out of 3 that came into incarnation. The rest of them are sort of wallowing around in a sort of daze and are stuck in relationships, they're stuck in ambition, they're stuck in money, and all this kind of stuff that keep you away from your soul plan. But I'm hoping that when this palpable change in the vibrations, that it'll just break that loose, and that more light workers will begin to wake up. And I can see, I'm a little bit more optimistic now than I was 5 years ago, when now people are enraged because of all the nasty things the dark forces have done for them. And even that rage of being, being taken for so many years or generations is opening them up to something else. Not necessarily, however, the soul shortage. But I have my fingers crossed that the more we get into the faster vibrations, that more of these people will be opening up. Now, at the same time, the more they try to open up, the more they're going to be attacked. Unless they get into some kind of a meditation that really holds them and they're able to protect themselves from it. And they can raise their vibrations high enough so that the attacks are lessened or disappear. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
So
Yes.
If the spiritual hierarchy decides on who these light bearers are, who decides on the dark forces?
Oh, they decide themselves. I mean, they just, all they say is, we don't believe in what you're doing and we do this. It's just the opposite of the
Are they
truth.
from the 4th dimension as well?
They trample on the lower levels of the 4th dimension. That's about as high as they can get. Most of it is done on the, the lower 2 subplanes of the 4th dimension, but most of it is in the 3-dimensional world. We're there. The black magic, for example, travels on the
They're still in the 4th dimension.
fringes of it. Yeah.
Are
It's huge.
the human beings who go wrong, or is there something else that's going on?
They're human beings, but I'm told that they're soulless, and that they come from, they're throwbacks from the Atlantean days. And they've managed somehow, and I think it's through some black magic formula, to reincarnate among themselves so that they succeed themselves. And I don't, the inner sanctums of these people, I mean, they're people. I mean, if you looked at them, they would be human beings. But there's a sort of a blankness, a lack of light. The eyes are dull, and they're. Now I've come across a couple of them, but you don't want to be in their company, that's for sure. But the other guys that you see in the newspapers, all these CEOs of banks and stuff like that, they're just the flunkies for these guys. They're the ones that they put them in front of the public and they get attacked and whatever. But they're expendable. Even the Federal Reserve Bank chairman is an expendable person. But at least the public is aiming their wrath at him and not at the dark forces. I don't know whether you've ever been to Basel. Have you been there? Basel, Switzerland. Have you ever seen the Bank of International Settlement? Right by the train station. And that thing, you get near it, you just want to get away from it. It's an insidious place, but yeah.
So, in your opinion, again, with your channel, obviously your app today, which is brilliant, for the troops. You really need it.
I hope I have an armor around me too. Well, I mean, it was a choice. I mean, when I wrote the first book, I took a chance of being liquidated.
Is your also opinion and channel, obviously you get stronger again, obviously the dark forces, negativity, they can see.
Now remember, the dark forces cannot adjust to these higher vibrations.
Are they also planning their attack to keep the ones who can't get to the higher vibration down?
They will hold back that, but I think what they're doing is they're now at the point where they're trying to save themselves. Now, that's why you see right now the price of gold has gone down. And they're suppressing it through derivatives and paper futures. Okay, because why? They want to buy it at the cheapest price, and they're just buying it like crazy. And I think that their regime, their whole idea of this world order, they, in their own, sociopathic way, they think that they can control the new world after the floods and after the changes by accumulating as much gold as they can, and they will have the center of power. It'll be in Switzerland. This is where they're storing it all, I'm told.
What does that have, should that have any effect on
No.
us?
Because hopefully you are raising your vibrations to the point where they can't touch you. You see? They operate on a very low vibrational level, and they will be liquidated also. Unless they have found some way in those caves to protect themselves from the higher vibrations, but I don't think they can. They can't. Because when I talk about higher vibrations, I'm talking about every single atom is being ramped up. So even if they're hiding in the mountains of rocks, the rocks are being agitated, and even the gold they're accumulating is being agitated also. Yes?
Can you just talk a bit about the earth changes and the volcanoes and people?
Well, the earth changes will primarily be a water event, another Noah's event. And we are told that the rising sea level, which, by the way, is happening right now. And I'll tell you the reason why the seas are rising, and nobody's telling you about it. Although some scientists are saying, oh, wait a minute, it's going up much faster than we thought. Take, for example, Bangkok. Remember Bangkok this last year? From July until December, it was underwater. And what was happening was that the river that flows through Bangkok just couldn't get out. The sea had gotten up higher, and of course Bangkok is very low. And it was just butting against the rising sea, and it was flowing over into the city. And you're going to see a lot of that happening. Okay, now what is happening? On the two poles, you have huge glaciers that are on land right now. Okay, they're on Iceland, they're on Greenland, and they're on the Antarctic continent. And these huge glaciers, I mean, they're miles deep and huge, continental size. Huge chunks of them have broken away from the main body of it, and they're sliding now toward the sea. Under this glacier is the friction that's being caused by the sliding, and the friction causes heat, which is causing the ice to melt And therefore, the thing is now floating and moving a lot faster than scientists had figured out. So what you have are huge rivers and lakes under these glaciers that are aiding these glaciers to move. Now, when that glacier, and it could happen anytime, sinks into the sea or falls off the continent, you don't have to wait for the ice to melt for the sea level to go up. It's a displacement. It's like throwing a huge, object, and the thing will just go up, and there'll be this massive tsunami that goes north-south, depending on where it happens, and that is where we get the idea that the sea levels will go up 200 feet.
200 feet?
About 60 meters.
Over the whole world?
The whole world, because water adjusts to the, and right now it's going up to the point where they have had to evacuate the Republic of Kiribati in the South Pacific. They quietly evacuated all the inhabitants from there and put them on Australia. And there have been a few islands off of India that have just disappeared. And the Maldives is, the ocean is now washing the coastal highway because that thing is being submerged in the rising seas. And I think if you were to just make a little chalk mark on some pier somewhere, you would see that it is going up. And it's quite obvious that this year you'll be able to see more evidence of this, especially in the areas where the sea is rising here and you have a river entering it, and it can't go where it usually went. So it's going to flow over to the inhabitants on the sides of the river, at the mouth of the river. So these estuaries and the mouths of rivers, you're going to see more flooding. Oh, I didn't want to say it. I walk around London and I say, this is going to be under it. Yeah, London is going to be flooded. Permanent.
London is going to what?
What?
London finished it?
London.
London, yeah.
When?
Wait, yes.
Soon.
Give us some idea.
Now that's the hard part. That's the hard part because I think you've got. I may be wrong, but my guess is another 5 years.
5.
That's enough time for you to make provisions to. What was that? How many prices will fall? I assure you. And any seaside, any seaside properties will be gone. Yes. Well, the World War we thought would come a little earlier, and these guys have been pretty tricky. What they've done is they split the world wars up into smaller wars. But ever since that book came out, we've been in a state of warfare. You have Iraq, you have Afghanistan, and then you have Libya, and you have just one after another, all in that area. Now, I don't know how that thing is going to really blow up, but that is linked to the desperation in the economic realm. It has always been a way of salvaging the losses of the economics. And it's getting bad. I mean, especially in Europe, it's just about to. And it is. There's a sort of a thin crust of this Maya, or illusion of printing money and keeping things going and stuff like this. But if you were to look at the balance sheets of all the banks, they're all insolvent. In the United States also, and even in Japan. So as that thing starts to fall, and notice how they hid the whole bankruptcy and fall of Greece. It was so well hidden. And we're just going to take care of everything and everything. But there is a lot of panic going on under the surface of people who want to get paid. Who who gave these loans and are not getting paid. So that's why they keep printing the money so that they give it to the banks so they can pay these guys and shut them up. But then the big one is coming, this is Portugal, and then Spain is on a brink right now. So when they cannot possibly print enough money to save Spain or Portugal. So this is why I think it's moving to the point where they're going to have to distract us from all that stuff. Have some big explosion somewhere in the world and frighten everybody so that everybody goes on the warpath and forgets about their economic troubles until they realize that that's going to sink them into greater economic troubles. But that's the kind of scenario I see. And that's the kind of scenario that happened, during before the Second World War, too.